This is my very tired $100 forge that I bought on eBay a couple of years ago, and today we're going to replace it with what I think is the best DIY forge kit on the market. This is the house-made Apollo ribbon burner propane forge. This is made by Brian House in Florida, and it's basically a flat pack kit that you put together yourself with kind of basic tools. It uses a replaceable fire brick, and I'm going to be putting one together using his instructions that he's got on his website. So the first thing to do is to bend up these little kind of sheet metal doors. They're made out of like 1/8 inch plate. And the reason I'm doing this first is because they need to be cast with refractory cement. This is arguably the most difficult part of the entire process, and it's still quite easy using a vise, a chisel, and just like a metal table. You can basically just bend these doors into place. You have to bend in these little kind of sprue tabs on the side that hold the refractory, which is just a castable cement, which came with the kit, and that just keeps these things together. So you bang these together. You make 2 doors, and then Brian provides you with enough refractory to fill the doors with the cement. Now, this is like a high temp fireproof cement. I don't know that much about it. I think it's Cast-A-Lite 30. So you mix it up with a measured amount of water, put it into the doors, and then you vibrate it to kind of get all the bubbles and all the kind of air pockets out of it. Now, this refractory needs to sit for a couple of days, so I wanted to make sure that I did this first so it would give me ample time to put together the rest of the forge while these set up. With the doors done and dry, you can assemble the rest of the forge, and you can see it's a tab and slot, really simple construction, but it's a relatively large unit. So you've got a side where the burner will go in, and before you can put the burner in, you have to drill out and tap some holes. So these are just a 3/8 16 tap. I'm using the electric tapping arm to quickly tap those out. Brian sends them laser cut, but you have to drill them out just to the right clearance size. And then you need to bend over these little tabs, which will hold the ribbon burner in place. Now, of course, when I needed to do this, I was out of oxyacetylene and I couldn't find my MAP gas torch. So I just used an acetylene torch that I had kicking around. And by heating it and bending it a little bit at a time, I was able to do this. Apparently, if you don't heat these, they'll crack, which I believe, because I think this is about 1/4 inch plate. So you got to make sure that you heat this up before you bend it. But you can see it's a relatively easy process. And if you're building a forge, you probably have a torch. So this should not be too difficult for you. Bend that over and grab it with a adjustable wrench to make sure I get that nice 90-degree angle. Now, the assembly of this forge is done with hard and soft fire brick and this KO wool as an additional insulator. So all this stuff comes in the kit. You basically just drop that in, you put some hard fire brick on the bottom, and then you put the soft fire brick around the perimeter, and then you cut a hole in the KO wool on the side for the ribbon burner. Now, Brian makes and casts the ribbon burner as well. So I bought that with the kit. You can kind of see it off to the side there. And then the whole forge, once it's all kind of put together in place, is held together with some all thread, just basically threaded rod, and the burner is held in place with a couple of Allen key bolts. The idea behind this, and I talked to Brian about it, is really just to make sure that it's serviceable. So normally, and like you saw in my old forge, that's a fully cast kind of forge body inside a metal tube, and once that starts to break down, you have to recast the entire thing. In this case, if any of these fire bricks on the inside break down, all I have to do is take apart the 4 bolts, and I could essentially just pop out the bricks and put new ones in. It also is kind of scalable. The way that I look at it is if I wanted to basically rebuild this forge in a wider setting, I could kind of use Brian's design, and I've seen versions of it that he's working on that use essentially the same principles to make a wider, longer, or taller forge. So once everything is kind of squeezed together, it's a pretty nice tight tolerance. You use the all thread to bolt everything down. And then he has this door system with kind of a piece of rod, and then the doors slide on it. You can get another idea of what my old forge looked like. And it really was starting to fall apart after a couple of years of use. It was very inefficient, used a lot of propane, and it didn't really get to where I wanted it to in terms of heat. Now, what I am going to reuse from the old forge, though, is this cart that I had previously made in a video quite a while ago with an adjustable tool stand, and it just so happens to be the exact size I need to put the forge on there. Now, in order to bolt the new Apollo forge down, I decided to just weld a big 5/8 bolt to the bottom of it, and then drill a hole in that 1-inch thick fire brick that I have on the table. The fire brick that I'm drilling through is actually like a pizza brick from a large pizza oven that a buddy of mine demoed a while ago and brought over to my shop. It's a great insulator. It makes for a nice surface. It's kind of like a semi-soft stone. It was kind of hard to drill through, but that's going to keep the forge bolted down really nicely. Now, Brian has an entire propane delivery system that he designed using like a needle valve and a big ball valve, and then a funnel that's 3D printed and a blower motor that goes on the bottom. I'm not going to go into how that gets assembled because it involves kind of dangerous propane gas, but Brian's got a great video on it if you want to learn more about it. It's very easy. It's just bolt together parts from Amazon. Now, while I was putting this together, I had been talking to Brian about the hinge design that I saw at the Maker Camp when I was up there. Now, instead of using that steel rod to have the door slide, he recommended using these little pin hinges that get welded on, which will allow the door to pivot. And I really like this design over the sliding door design because I just felt like it would allow me to open the doors a little more freely and more quickly get them out of my way. So I welded those on. And then because I had welded on those hinges, I was able to actually cut off that top of the door that I had bent on in the beginning of the video. So I just quickly zipped those off with a grinding disc and then, kind of bent them off and cleaned up the doors over onto the downdraft table. You could have just cut those off if you knew you were going to use the pin hinges from the beginning. So I think if you're building one of these and you want to use hinges, just zip those off before you bend them over. I also wanted to clean up the front of the doors with a little surface conditioning disc before I put on these little kind of door handles so that I could open and close them more easily. These are just a piece of 1/4-inch bar that I bent at a 90-degree angle, and that'll just allow me to get in there with my tongs or with anything to just kind of swing the doors open. Next thing was to do kind of the final assembly on this, which is to screw on the propane delivery arm, and then I could put the blower motor, which is a kind of big fan, on the bottom. Now to test it out and light it up. Now, once this thing is kind of tuned in, you really don't have to reset the adjusters. You can basically just turn on and off the propane and light it as needed. But the ribbon burner, when it's running efficiently, runs at like 2 or 3 PSI. It's super efficient, creates a really hot flame and kind of spirals inside that square design of the forge. Really nice curl to that flame. So I put in a piece of 1-inch round bar, let it get up to temperature, and then I'm going to go and give it a shot on my 1908 Beaudry Peerless Power Hammer. This thing got the metal hot very quickly. It was very quiet and easy to run, super easy to tune in, and I'm really excited to have a new and large forge in my shop. Previously, I really just had used the induction heater. So if you're interested in the Apollo Forge, check out Brian at House Made and check out his website. I'll put links down below. It's really a beautiful kit, super easy to assemble, and arguably the best DIY forge kit on the market right now. I'm really happy to have picked one up over at the Maker Camp, and I think it's going to be a great addition to my shop. Really excited to get some more work done under the power hammer too. So if you enjoyed this, give this video a thumbs up, leave any comments down below. Check me out here on Instagram, and I hope to see you on the next video using the forge. Thanks.